Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jai Amaspat Paramahansa Paribhrajalacharya Sattva Smadhati Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Bhagavad Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai Ramacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Bhog Gopinath Sam Khund Radha Khund Giri Vardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Guru Dwarka Dham Ki Jai Swami Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glories to their Samari All glories to their Samari Thank you very much.
All glories to you, Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you, Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. All glories to our revered speaker for today, His Grace SALIKA Prabhu. And all glories to the Assembled Vaishnava devotees. Devotees, we thank you all for being here as always. And we are grateful we have one of our own, SALIKA Prabhu, who will be speaking to us today. So, of course, SALIKA Prabhu needs no introduction. SALIKA Prabhu, so you are welcome to your own home. And we may put the verse on the screen and you take it over from here.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Now this is good.
Very good. Yes.
Great.
Very good.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritam Narayachaivam Narottama Devi Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nastapraishu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Sloke Bhakti Bhagavate Naistike. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, and unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because by regular attendance in classes on the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees of the Lord, all that is troublesome to the earth is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So we welcome the devotees to today's Srimad Bhagavatam. We're reading from third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're currently studying the chapter 9 of the third canto, and today we'll be discussing from text number 12, titled Brahma's Prayer for Creative Energy. So the text reads thus. Nati prasidati tato pasito pasare. Aradita suraganai ridibada akamai. Yatsava bhutat daryada dayaya sad alabhyayako. Nana janeshu avaita surit anta atmaha. Nati prasidati tatu pashito pacharahe. Aradito suraganai ridibada akamai. Yat sarvabhuta dayaya sad alabhyaiko. Nana janeshu avaita surit anta atmaha. Nati prasidati tato pashito pacharahe. Aradita suragana vidibada akamai. Yat sarvabhuta ayatayaya sad alabhyaiko. Nana janeshu avaita surit antahatmaha. Word for word translation now, never. Ati, very much. Rasidati, become satisfied. Tataha, as much as. Upashitaha, by pompous arrangement. Upacharai, with much worshipable paraphernalia. Aradita, being worshipped. Suraganai, by the celestial demigods. The Buddha Karma, it acts full of all sorts of material desires. Yet, that which Sarvaha, all, Bhutaha, living entities, Dayaya, to show them costless mercy. Asat, non-devotee. Alabhyaya, not being achieved. Ekaha, one without a second. Nana, various. Janishu, in living entities. Avahita, perceived. Surit, well-wishing friends. Antaha, within. Atma, super soul. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhai Charanara Vrinda, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Hari Ki Jai. My Lord, you are not very much satisfied by the worship of the demigods, who arrange for your worship very pompously, with various paraphernalia, but who are full of material anchorings. You are situated in everyone's heart as the super soul, just to show your costless mercy, and you are the eternal well-wisher, but you are unavailable for the non-devotees. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The demigods in the celestial heavenly planets, who are appointed administrators of the material affairs, are also devotees of the Lord. But at the same time, they have desires for material opulence and sense gratification. The Lord is so kind that He awards them all sorts of material happiness, more than they can desire. But He is not satisfied with them because they are not pure devotees. The Lord does not want any one of His innumerable sons, the living entities, to remain in the material world of threefold miseries, to perpetually suffer the material pangs of birth, death, old age, and disease. The demigods in the heavenly planets and many devotees on this planet also want to remain in the material world as devotees of the Lord and take advantage of material happiness. They do so at a risk of falling down to the lower status of existence, and this makes the Lord dissatisfied with them. Pure devotees are not desirous of any material enjoyment, nor are they averse to it. They completely dovetail their desire with the desires of the Lord and perform nothing. On their personal account, Arjuna is a good example on his own sentiment due to family affection. Arjuna did not want to fight. But finally, after hearing Srimad Bhagavad Gita, he agreed to fight in the interest of the Lord. Therefore, the Lord is very much satisfied with pure devotees because they do not act for sense gratification, but only in terms of the Lord's desire. As Paramatma or Super Soul, he is situated in everyone's heart, always giving everyone the chance of good counsel. Thus, everyone should take the opportunity and render transcendental loving service to him, wholly and solely. The non-devotees, however, are neither like the demigods nor like the pure devotees, but are averse to the transcendental relationship with the Lord. They have revolted against the Lord and must perpetually undergo the reactions of their own activities. Bhagavad Gita 4:11 states, Ye yata mam prapadyante, tam stataiva pajami aham. Although the Lord is equally kind to every living being, the living beings, for their own part, are able to please the Lord to either a greater or lesser extent. The demigods are called Sakama devotees, or devotees with material desires in mind, while the pure devotees are called Nishkama devotees because they have no desire for their personal interest. The Sakama devotees are self-interested because they do not think of others, and therefore they are not able to satisfy the Lord perfectly. Whereas the pure devotees take the missionary responsibility of turning non-devotees into devotees, and they are therefore able to satisfy the Lord more than the demigods. The Lord is unmindful of the non-devotees, although he is sitting within everyone's heart as well-wisher and super soul. However, he also gives them the chance to receive his mercy through his pure devotees who are engaged in missionary activities. Sometimes, the Lord himself descends for missionary activities, as he did in the form of Lord Chaitanya. But mostly, he sends his bona fide representatives, and thus he shows his costless mercy towards the non-devotees. The Lord is so satisfied with his pure devotees that he wants to give them the credit for missionary success. Although he could do the work personally, this is the sign of his satisfaction with his pure Niskama devotees compared to the Sakama devotees. By such transcendental activities, the Lord simultaneously becomes free from the charge of partiality and exhibit his pleasure with the devotees. Now, a question arises. If the Lord is sitting in the hearts of non-devotees, why are they not moved to become devotees? It may be answered that the stubborn non-devotees are like the barren land or alkaline field where no agricultural activities can be successful. As part and parcel of the Lord, every individual living entity has a minute quantity of independence, and by the misuse of this minute independence, the non-devotees commit offense after offense to both the Lord and his pure devotees engage in missionary work. As a result of such acts, they become as barren as an alkaline field where there is no strength to produce. Umagyanam timirandasya Jnanam Jnanam Shalakaya Shaksho Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamayam Dadati Swam Padantikam Vandyam Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Sha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganam Raghunatam Vitam Tam Saajivam Sadhuitam Savaidutam Parijanam Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Saganam Lalita Sri Vishakavitam Sha Hey Krishna Karuna Shindu Dina Bandhu Bhagapati Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radevin Davaneshwari Brishabhanu Shuti Devi Pranamami Haripriye Mukankaroti Vachalam Pangam Lagayate Girim Yat Kripatam Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Vanchakarpataru Vyascha Kripa Sundubhya Sivascha Patitanam Pavashnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srinivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. My Lord, you are not very much satisfied by the worship of the demigods, who arrange for your worship very pompously with various paraphernalia, but you are full of who are full of material uncleanness. You are situated in everyone's heart as a super soul just to show your costless mercy, and you are the eternal well-wisher. But you are unavailable for the non-devotees. Hare Krishna. So we welcome once again the devotees to this beautiful moment where we discuss the essence of human existence. Everyone who reads Srimad Bhagavatam says this particular verse is very beautiful. Why is that? Because, as explained by the acharyas, Srimad Bhagavatam is described as a ripening fruit, as Vyasadeva himself said in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. When a fruit is very ripened, one enjoys the succulent. Mango is called the king of all fruits. And when you get a mango, there is a particular species of mango. We call it cherry mango. Locally, I don't know what name we call it other places. The mango is so sweet that both the peel and the juice inside of the mango is so sweet. And naturally, it has the smallest seed of all the species of mango. So we love to eat it. And when we eat that mango, to some extent, we don't want to throw away the shell, but we still have to throw it away because it is not eatable raw like that. But Srimad Bhagavatam is sweeter than cherry mango because not only that is sweet, the external covering or the skin of the Srimad Bhagavatam is sweet. The juice inside of Srimad Bhagavatam is very sweet. And even inside, the seed is more sweeter because the more you get deeper into the Srimad Bhagavatam, it becomes sweeter. So therefore, it perfectly fits the description of what Bhagavatam is said to be. It is said that There is nothing sweeter than the Supreme Personality of God himself, because like he himself, he said, is the origin of everything. Everything is emanating from him. So therefore, whatever conception of sweetness that we can conceive of is manifestation of the portion of the Supreme Lord. So the Supreme Lord is the most sweetest of all sweetness. So therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam, the more you go deeper, the more sweetness you experience in drinking the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is why it is not surprising when anyone speaks. He said, this particular verse is very sweet. But this is the nature of all of the Srimad Bhagavatam text. Because every portion of the Srimad Bhagavatam you touch is so sweet. So today we're discussing a very interesting, sweet, nectarian verse from the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where it is described, Prabhupada titled the chapter, Brahma's Prayer for Creative Energy. And that title is significant because it perfectly aligns with all of the texts, especially the text we're reading today. Whenever you see a text in the Srimad Bhagavatam and Prabhupada take time to write a long purport, it indicates the depth of that kind of a verse. So Prabhupada wrote 5 paragraphs in the purport of this text, and he delved into 5 subject matters, which are very deep subjects in the course of transcendental subject matter. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna, he had said something to Arjuna that in the text number chapter 7 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna told Arjuna of different types of transcendentalists. Everyone endeavoring on the path of transcendence. Manushya nam sa asre su kasir yatati sidai. Yatati api sidanam kasir man beti tatota. That out of many thousands among men who are endeavoring for perfection, and of those who have achieved that perfection, Krishna says, hardly one knows him in truth. So here, in the first paragraph, Prabhupada is highlighting 2 types of devotees. In the later paragraph, Prabhupada will talk about those who are non-devotees. When we look at the text is specifically talking about some mood of the Lord in relation to those who are serving him. In other words, the text is not talking about those who are non-devotees. Among the billions and trillions of the living entities that are spread across the 3 worlds, every living entity are in different mindsets. In recent times, while working with interfaith groups, I start seeing how wonderful. Initially, I read on the on Wikipedia that in today's world there are over 2,500 different types of known religious groups or traditions. But it sounds very vague. But recently, in working with different groups of people coming from different backgrounds, I started studying so many. And 2 particular groups interest my attention. There is some group that is called the Druze. The Druze religion, particularly, they describe themselves as someone who has beliefs their belief is in combination of Islam, tradition, Christianity, Gnosticism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and several other concepts of philosophies of other religions. In other words, they are all in all. So whatever tradition of faith you have in the existence of the Supreme, they identify themselves with it. And I was wondering that how do one attain the goal of the purpose of religion by having this kind of understanding? And as I go deeper, I found another interesting group. They call themselves the animists. Their beliefs is something very close to the Vedic understanding of the 8,400,000 species of life. They see in every element, in every creation, the presence of the Supreme Personality of God. So they call themselves. So they're trying to show compassion to the animals. And unfortunately, some of them still eat animals. But they focus on identifying that these living entities all exist in all forms of life, in the rock, in the stone, that every existence has some form of soul in them. So there are so many believers in the world among the living entities, the children of God, as Prabhupada called them in this purport. But in the first paragraph, Prabhupada is highlighting two types of those particular persons. Prabhupada is not talking about those who are non-devotees now. He's talking about two categories of devotees. The demigods. The demigods are considered to be devotees of the Lord. Why are they considered the devotees of the Lord? Because they are directly in the service of the Lord, in the administration of his external energy. They are in the charge of several affairs. And because of their knowing that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they engage in such an elaborate level of worship. Second to those kind of personalities or entities are the devotees of Hare Krishna movement. I've experienced so many traditions in the world, but I've never seen in any tradition where one worship elaborately as it is in the Krishna consciousness movement. Some of us need to go to temples in India and see the arrangement of worship of deities. So the devotees, they are very expert in worshiping the Lord. And in this particular paragraph, Prabhupada is talking about this type of devotees. They understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna. They understand him. And they worship the Lord elaborately. These are demigods. And because they are worshiping the Lord like this, the Lord bestows so much of opulences upon them so that they can worship him in that category, in that capacity. So there is no one who can perfectly, with the best of ornament, worship the Supreme Lord like the demigods. Superior to them is the Lord himself in his form as Balaram. Apart from Lord Balaram or the Lord in his internal energy as Radha, there is none who can worship the Lord like the demigods in opulent worship of the Lord. And this brings to mind, sometimes in our devotee, and Prabhupada referenced that in the material world also, we see devotees that worship the Lord very, very powerfully with several ornaments. When we started deity worship in West Africa, I was enamored with the kind of pomposity that we wish we worship. And Prabhupada used that same word in translation also, when we join devotional service. But when you go out, even outside of Africa, when you go to somewhere like India, Mayapur, Vrindavan, and many other temples, when you see there is a forum of devotees, Hare Krishna world, where they post devotees deity picture. There are some times when pictures are snapped. There are many. You don't get attracted to a particular one. There's a particular temple, Kamadu or something like that in India. whenever they will post 58 pictures of different parts of the deities. And interesting thing is that I always find it difficult not to stop and carefully look at each of those deities with the level of the pomposity in which the deities are nicely dressed and nicely ornamented. And the demigods and the devotees are very expert in this. But then, Prabhupada is saying something in the purport, in the very first paragraph. This wonderful purport, this wonderful pompous worship of the Lord is great, it's wonderful. But it is not so attracted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why? Because all of these activities exist in the material world. In other words, when one loses the purpose behind an activity, no matter how wonderful that activity is, then it becomes a risk. So in the last sentence in the first paragraph, Prabhupada said, they do so, he said, the demigods in the heavenly planets and many devotees on this planet also want to remain in the material world as devotees of the Lord and take advantage of material happiness. They do so at a risk of falling down to the lower status of existence, and this makes the Lord dissatisfied with them. This is the reason why the Lord is dissatisfied. Although the devotees in the material world, some of us also are carried out along. And this is what Prabhupada is saying, that this elaborate worship of the Lord is so powerful and it's so interesting. But we sometimes get lost in this and we lose the purpose. Because the ultimate purpose of all of this is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not pleased, then even though one worships the Lord, and now in this Prabhupada is not talking about non-devotees here, he's not talking about those who are impersonalists, he's talking about those who are devotees. They worship the Lord, and sometimes in a very pompous way, in a very elegant, wonderful way. But Prabhupada is posing even the dangers in that here, that because this worship is going on in the material world, if one loses the focus of the purpose of this, then the chances are that he will do what? He will fall down, no matter how highly elevated such a person is worshiping. And this reminds one of the story of one beautiful story in the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the 4th canto, we read about the activities of King Puranjana. King Puranjana was so rich, he was so opulent in that age. Opulence was so much. It's not what we are exhibiting as opulence, paper opulence that has no substance. King Puranjana was so opulent, and because he was so opulent, he has so much opulence, he wanted to enjoy this opulence. And because of that, in the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in chapter 25, text number 12, we read, King Puranjana had an unlimited desire because of sense enjoyment. He wants to enjoy. And consequently, he traveled all over the world to find a place where all his desire could be fulfilled. Unfortunately, he found a feeling of insufficiency everywhere. And this is the essence of what this paragraph 1 of Prabhupada is focusing on. In the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami told us in the 234, Srila Rupa Goswami tells us in the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ata Sri Krishna Nama Di Na Bhavya Griya Indriye. Sebamuke Hi Jiva Da Swayam Evas Puratyada. That no one can understand Krishna as he is by the blunt material senses, but he reveals himself only to the devotees being pleased. The same point that is mentioned here, pleasure of the Supreme Lord. He reveals himself only to the devotees being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service unto him. Their transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord is unmotivated. And that is why Sukadev Goswami, when he was describing this part of bhakti, he disassociated from just rituals of worship. In other words, devotional service is not about just the worship. It is about the consciousness behind the worship. And that is why Srila Prabhupada named very beautifully this movement, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. The essence of this point here being mentioned is that the consciousness behind the activities is what makes the activities, not the activities in themselves. In 2003, Srila Gurudev, while giving lecture in India, he said everyone is a devotee. Everyone. And it became a shocking statement because people are wondering, how can everyone become a devotee? Even Kamsa is a devotee. Everyone is a devotee of the Lord. But the consciousness behind that kind of, the point here is that one could fault King Puranjana because he wants to enjoy. But who doesn't want to enjoy? Lord Brahma told us in this, after his realization, when we look at the beginning of this chapter, Lord Brahma, when he finished, after all of his penances, the first stanza was, he described the Supreme Personality of God, Ishwara Paraman Krishna, Sakchidananda Vigraha, Anadhyadi Govindam, Sarvakaranam Karanam. Sakchi Ananda Vigraha. This is the description of the characteristic of the Supreme Lord. And it is said, because the living entity, Krishna himself confirms that. He said the living entities was what? Mamaivam so Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. The living entity are an eternal fragmental past and parcel. So therefore, their nature also is Ananda Mahayo Vyasat. So the point here is that one could immediately think, sense enjoyment is the problem. No, there's nothing wrong with sense enjoyment, but one should, the consciousness in which the enjoyment is made is what makes enjoyment senseless. There is nothing wrong in enjoyment because the living cannot stay without being seeking for enjoyment. The tendency, the nature of desiring for such enjoyment is natural with the living entity, and that is why in the Vedic scripture it is said, Ananda Maya Vyasa is a seeking pleasure living entity. So seeking for pleasure is not the problem. Wanting to gratify the senses is not the problem. But one has to understand, one has to understand how to enjoy the senses. And that is what Prabhupada went to in the second paragraph of the purport. And Prabhupada is explaining that pure devotees are not desirous of any material enjoyment, nor are they averse to it. They're not averse to enjoyment. Whether it is material enjoyment, they are not desirous of any material enjoyment, nor are they averse to it. The pure devotees of the Lord, they are not averse to sense enjoyment. They are not averse to it. Why? Because they know that enjoyment in itself is not the problem. They completely dovetail their desire with the desire of the Lord and perform nothing on their personal account. And Prabhupada gave an example of Arjuna. Arjuna, for the purpose of enjoying his senses, he decided, I will not fight in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. I will not fight. For me, there is nothing to need to fight because the fighting will not give me satisfaction. And this satisfaction is not wrong. To desire to be satisfied is not wrong. It is a natural inclination of the being, living entities, because they inherit that. Prabhupada use it for the living entities who are children of the Lord, because they are of the nature of the Lord. So their tendency is to enjoy. So that enjoying spirit is not wrong. And that is why the pure devotees are not averse to it, but they try to enjoy in the spirit of the Lord. Prabhupada is giving an example, the Arjuna, as an example. The Arjuna also doesn't want to engage in a particular activities because he's thinking, if I do this, I will not be satisfied. But Prabhupada said, after hearing the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, he agreed to fight in the interest of the Lord. Therefore, the Lord is very much satisfied with pure devotees because they do not act for sense gratification, but only in terms of the Lord's desire, as Paramatma or Super Soul. is situated in everyone's heart and giving everyone the chance of good counsel. Thus, everyone should take the opportunity and render transcendental loving service to him wholly and solely. Because ultimately, the ultimate goal is to do what? Is to satisfy the Lord. There is nothing else. Because Krishna is the supreme beginning, the middle, the end of everything. And everything is meant for his satisfaction. So anything that goes outside of the satisfaction of the Lord becomes very poisonous. One may ask a question. So then, if our nature is to enjoy, so why can't we not then enjoy? Our enjoyment, because we are part of a particular nature of the Supreme, which is spiritual. So our enjoyment is automatically fulfilled. And Prabhupada will always give an example that we have a different part of the body, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, all the senses of the bodies are there. But all of these senses are nourished by only one portion of the body, the stomach. All of these different senses of the body are nourished just simply by satisfying the stomach. When the food is given to the stomach, it transmits all of the benefit of the food to all of the parts of the body, and they keep themselves in existence. In the same way, the living entity should not desire not to enjoy. It should desire to enjoy, but enjoy like Arjuna did in Krishna's desire. And automatically, his enjoying spirit will be satisfied. And Prabhupada now contrasts that, apart from, Prabhupada has been talking about those who are devotees. Then he now contrasts it in a very brief sentence. He said, the non-devotees, however, are neither like the demigods nor the pure devotees, but are averse to the transcendental relationship with the Lord. They have revolted against the Lord and must perpetually undergo the reactions of their own activities. And this is what is going on in the material world. The whole material world is going through the existence of what we are experiencing in the material world as a result of not being a devotee. Unless one is a devotee, he is going to perpetually experience suffering. No one in existence can be happy, can be free from anxiety, from suffering, unless he's a devotee. So Prabhupada is emphasizing in this paragraph that the non-devotees are already doomed. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he mentioned that. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentioned that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ataheva Santa Bhukti Mukti Siddhikami Sakale Asanta, in the Madhya Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 19th chapter. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that because a devotee of the Lord are desireless, is peaceful, fruitive workers desire material enjoyment, Gyanis desires liberation, and yogis desire material opulence. Therefore, they are all lusty and cannot be peaceful. They are cursed. And in the purport of that verse, Prabhupada explained, in the very purport, he said, the devotees of the Lord Krishna has no desire other than serving Krishna. So that one does not misunderstand that the devotee doesn't have a desire. When the text says that the devotees of the Krishna are desireless, desireless does not mean that one does not have desire. Only that the desire is that they only desire to serve Krishna. So one who desire to serve Krishna is already a desireless person. The impersonalists are trying to be desireless because they see the danger in being desirous in the material world. So therefore, they negate everything. Neti. They want to avoid everything, but they cannot be freed. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying in Chaitanya Charitamrita that they are already doomed. Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Ataheva Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami. Whether they are transcendentalist yogi, whether they are already doomed, they will never be peaceful. The whole world is looking for peace. The global space in Africa alone, last week I was sharing these figures, over $18 billion is spent annually to try to develop peace in Africa alone. It's spent on trying to make the world peaceful. But Prabhupada gave a simple solution that Krishna has given. Bhuktaram yakitapa sam sarvaloka maheshwaram. Suridam sarva bhutanam jetwamam shantim rishati. They do not know the formula for become peaceful. So therefore, billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars are being wasted every year. The G20 government of the world come together and they are trying to solve this for peace. One of the focus of G20 in this year is focused on food insecurity. And when I was when I was entertaining an interview on that subject, so I was telling, I said, what do they mean by food insecurity? How can there be food insecurity or shortage of food? I said, there's nothing like shortage of food. The only shortage is what? Shortage of intelligence. Their intelligence is already lost because the world already has more than enough to feed everybody. But what the world does not have in enough quantity is the greed that the world leaders themselves are perpetrating. I said, so if they want to have the food, they want to solve the problem of food shortage, then they should go to our Food for Life Global, the Hare Krishna Food for Life Global. They should donate a quarter of that amount of money. They will see in 1 year the food shortage situation that they are trying to solve will be reduced to a greater extent. I said, just a quarter of that money budgeted for solving the problem of shortage of food, give it to the Hare Krishnas through our global program, Food for Life Global. So the living entities, when Krishna says the devotees of the Lord are desired, it does not mean that she is not there. The devotee desires everything. We want everything. But we want everything for Krishna. And because the devotees want everything for Krishna, so Prabhupada is contrasting them with non-devotees. The non-devotees are doomed. Why? Because they are completely, they are revolting against the Lord. And therefore, they must perpetually undergo sufferings in the material world. And Prabhupada is saying, just like I said earlier, like Guru said, he quoted the Bhagavad Gita 4:11. Yeyatamam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. Mama Vatman Vata, Manisha Pata Salvasa, Lord Krishna is saying, all of them, all the living entities in the material world, they are all, whether they are devotees, whether they are non-devotees, whether they are transcendentalists, whether they are non-transcendentalists, whatever category they put themselves, whether they are the Druze, the animists, or whatever they name they create themselves, they are all following on his path. But God, Krishna, is rewarding each and every one according to their level of consciousness. So Prabhupada explained further that the demigods are called Sakama devotees, or devotees with material desires in mind. They are devotees, but because they have desire to enjoy for themselves outside of the Lord. And that is what is called Maya. Sometimes devotees battle with finding the difference between Maya and Mahamaya and Maya in the material world. Maya is not wrong, but desiring to enjoy outside of the Lord desire is what is called the wrong. So Prabhupada discussed the demigods, although they are devotees, and there are so many devotees like that in this world, especially even in our own movement. There are so many devotees, wonderfully. And sometimes devotees will ask that question, how possible is it that a devotee, I can never believe that devotee, he chants Hare Krishna very, very powerfully every morning. The way he closes his eye, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And the next thing, he's fall down. How come? I was also bewildered like that in the early days. There was one devotee, I won't mention name, because when the public speak, one of my heroes, when I joined the devotion service in the early days, is absolutely absorbed in deity worship. But to my greatest amazement, just one morning, he just woke up and he just carried his bag. He said, I'm leaving. I don't want to worship Krishna again. And when I asked, what is the problem? He said, Krishna is not God. And that is what Prabhupada is saying in this purpose. The risk is there because it is a danger zone. As long as you're in this material world, no matter how expert you are in trying to engage the 9 processes of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, and others are very powerful, but the most powerful out of it is what? Sadhu Sangha. Association is the key. But because, even though we're trying to associate with Krishna, because we're associating with Krishna and simultaneously associating with material nature, so the high risk of falling down is there. No matter how expert a swimmer is, he cannot swim across the ocean. He will get consumed by the ocean. No matter how expert he can swim. Because why? He will get exhausted. Although the soul cannot be exhausted, because the soul is what? It's transcendental. But because the soul is engaged in the material body, so it gets exhausted. So our body is saying the Lord is unmindful of the non-devotees, although he's sitting within everyone's heart, and as well the well-wisher and super soul. However, he also gives them the chance to receive the mercy. And that is why preaching Krishna consciousness is important. The Krishna consciousness movement is doing the greatest service by trying to remind the living entities. The living entities are all of the nature of the Supreme Personality of God. In other words, also they have knowledge, Sat. They are also eternal. They have experience of bliss to a certain degree, but because of their conditioning, they constantly forget. So therefore, there is a need. And of all the needs of the living entities, the greatest of the needs is to constantly hear. And that is why it is said in the scriptures that the greatest medication for solving the material existence, challenges of material existence, is to hear the transcendental vibrations of the Lord. Otherwise, one becomes like King Puranjana. No matter how we try. Recently, there is so much of conversation around this group of devotees, that group of devotees, because of the devotees' misunderstandings among themselves. But whether one belongs to this devotee side or belongs to that devotee side, it doesn't matter. What matters is that if the Lord is pleased, that is what is important. So the Vedanta Sutra said that living entities must enjoy, but its enjoyment must be in accordance with the satisfaction of the Lord. Srila constantly engages, and that's why you see in 99% of Srila Prabhupada's lectures, you will not see Prabhupada giving a lecture. He will say, Prabhupada will say that in different ways, either directly or paraphrasing it. That one has to come to the consciousness that one is what? A spirit, which is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's why Prabhupada concluded the purport of the text by explaining that now, question might arise. If the Lord is sitting, is not partial, he's sitting in the heart of devotees or non-devotees. Why is it that the non-devotees who has the Lord sitting in their heart, why are they not moved to become a devotee of the Lord? And Prabhupada said, it may be answered that the stubborn non-devotees are like the barren land or arcanal field. In our experience in devotional preaching, sometimes we hear devotees, they ask questions. He says, so, Prabhu, why is it that someone is, I think even on this platform, someone has asked that question in the past. So why is it that someone is in this movement and they are senior devotees? They have been in the movement for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, but their activities does not align with what the scripture says a devotee will be. So they are the one Prabhupada is describing here. Although they are seemingly in the path of bhakti, but they're like alkaline field. They are barren field. And how can one become barren field? When one is lost, when one is captured by the illusory energy of the Lord and is captured by the sensual desire to enjoy, separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he becomes doomed. So the summary of the purpose of this text that we're reading today is that it is not just enough to be called a devotee or to be engaged in the worship of the Lord. One has to become Krishna consciousness. One has to become Krishna conscious. It is not enough to become a devotee or a member of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. It's not enough to become even a demigod, but one has to become Krishna conscious, and only then Krishna will be pleased. And when Krishna has become pleased by one's desire to please him and him only, and that is simple. Lord Chaitanya made that very simple. Of all the process of devotional church service, the easiest one is that once you chant, Arai Nam, Arai Nam, Arai Nam Eva Keva, Kalau Nasti, Eva Nasti, Eva Nasti Gati and Yata. In this age, there is none. We've heard so many stories about wonderful result of association with devotees of the Lord, but even our bad karma cannot allow us. So therefore, one should chant the holy name of the Lord. By associating with the holy name of the Lord, one may be chanting in namabas or even in offensive chanting, gross offensive chanting. But when one continuously chants, and we've seen this in a practical experience, the famous story of life experience in preaching in Kaduna in Nigeria has given me an experience of that. The church was nearby, and the pastor will always tell them, he chorused a song just because he wants to bring down the name of Krishna. So every day when they come to service, they end up chanting a Krishna. But after so many years, this same person who was bringing the name Krishna down, he decided to ask, I want to buy back your book, Science of Self-Realization. And I had one particular experience yesterday. Someone I will never, she's seemingly an illiterate woman, old woman. So I was driving out to go out after the morning service. And I was going to go out. So she stopped me, said, can you give me a lift? And I said, okay, ma'am, please call me. And as I picked her up, and he said, it's like you have moved your center to your permanent site. So I was confused what she was saying. I said, what do you mean? I said, no, ma'am. Mama, we have not moved anywhere. He said, because I've not been hearing that your sound, Krishna, 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 Krishna. So I think maybe you have moved to your permanent site. Although, externally, we could look at that in different ways, because I've been traveling in recent times. And so there is no loud chanting of the Hare Krishna. So, but the fact here, the positive aspect of that conversation yesterday for me was that, oh, so this woman, although this is a woman, she's an illiterate. She has no education, material education. But somehow or the other, I never would believe if somebody tells me this. But she's been hearing Krishna. And who knows, at the time of death, Krishna just made, because of this constant eagerness to hear the Hare Krishna chanting in the morning, may just give her liberation. I was so shocked when I heard that from her yesterday morning. I said, so, because forget about every other person, but this is a woman, very old woman. This woman should be around 70, between 80 years old. And when she said this to me, I said, wow, how wonderful. So the best association is that association with the chanting of the holy name. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cannot be wrong. And Lord Chaitanya Prabhupada said that of all the process of Krishna consciousness, one should constantly chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By this one process of chanting the holy name of the Lord, one automatically overcome all the challenges of material dualities, and one attains the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and become pleased by the Lord. And when one becomes pleased by the Lord like that, he attains the ultimate goal of human life, and he goes back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think I'll stop here. So if there are some questions, comments, contributions, interactions, welcome. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Shri Salika Prabhu, as always. Very beautiful. Dear devotees, if anyone may have questions, comments, reflections you may want to ask or share, please indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to ask your question. Well, Prabhuji, you see, thank you. Thank you for speaking and speaking so beautifully. You were talking about one devotee who had been a devotee for quite a while and was understood to be a very serious devotee. And out of nowhere, he opens his mouth to say, I'm quitting, I'm leaving. Krishna, I've come to understand that Krishna is not God. I am not surprised at all because it's very difficult for most of us, especially those of us who are just ordinary people, to come to accept that Krishna is God. Of course, we know the Lord Brahma also not recognizing Krishna. We know that pastime. So even great demigods, they could be bewildered. But generally speaking, the way we human beings, our conception of God does not really fit into who Krishna is. Therefore, it's very difficult for us to accept that Krishna is God, even though scripturally it's undeniable that he is the supreme absolute truth. So the question I have is, Krishna is our supreme father. Why doesn't he make himself so easily accessible and knowable that all his children can know him, that yes, this is my father, let me serve him. But he makes it so kind of conspicuous for most of us to really accept that this is God, my father, and let me serve him. Why does Krishna do that?
Thank you very much for the beautiful question, Prabhuji. And Srila Prabhupada answered that question very beautifully in the purport. And that's where Prabhupada concluded the purport. He said, as part and parcel of the Lord, every living individual entity has a minute quantity of independence. And by misuse of this minute independence, the non-devotees commit offense after offense to both the Lord and his pure devotees engaged in missionary work. And as a result of such act, they become a barren as an alkaline field. So that is the problem. The simple answer is, although it sounds so complex question, because it's very difficult to understand, because the Lord is right there. I'm seated in the heart of every living entity. Ishwara Sarva Bhutanam, read it, say, Juna Atish Chati. I'm seated there, I'm seated here in the heart. So the Lord is there, the all omniscient, and he's there with the living entities. So why is it that it's very difficult for one to understand that he is the supreme Lord, and one should just surrender to him and just serve him like that? But because then the whole purpose of Krishna manifesting himself into unlimited forms and expansions of Lila as the living entities will become completely negated, because that minute independency will not be there. And once there is no independency, there is no meaning to love, because there cannot be love with an individual. So Krishna, to exhibit his love, he manifests his internal potency, Radha, and he exhibited that pastimes of Radha Krishna, Sitaram, Lakshmi Narayan. So for the living entity, which are also is part and parcel to exhibit that relationship of loving set relationship, the Lord has given them that minute independency so that they can love him or not desire to love him. And if that right is taken, and it is said that this independency is the only property of the soul, the living entity has nothing, practically nothing. And that is what is manifesting in his desire. When we say desire, the desire simply means the minute independency. But that minute independency, we consider it to be absolute independence. So we want to exhibit unlimitedly. even when it is not possible, because by nature we are part, we are not the whole. So we cannot exhibit that absoluteness. And that is what makes us, and that is why it is used, the word unknown, minute, is used. So if the independencies are not there, then there is no meaning to the laws and his part and parcel's relationship. So the Lord is there, but the Lord does not micromanage. It's not, sometimes God is described as the supreme autocrat, but God is not autocrat. Yes, in some consciousness, you may say it's an autocrat because he can do anything and everything he likes, but still, it exhibits that love. And that is why God is described as love, not an autocrat. Because an understanding of a conditioned person, of a person who has an absolute ability to do anything and everything, is that he does even things that are not right. And like my grandfather would say, when I was growing up, my grandfather would say, God can do anything and everything. He said, but there are certain things God will not do. And we would jokingly ask my grandfather, I said, like what? He said, like when my mother dies, then they will say the next queen, and when the Queen of England dies, then they will say, my mother is the next queen. He said that God will not allow that to happen. It's because it's not a confusion. He says that God is powerful. He can have the ability to do anything and everything. But there are certain things he will not do. It's not impossible for him to do it, but he will not do it because he is God. And he said, and the example is that the Queen of England will die, and my mother, who is a village woman in the local village in Abeokuta in Ogun State in Nigeria, and they will say that she's the next Queen of England. He said, God will not allow that to happen, although he can do anything and everything. So God can do anything and everything. He has power to make everything happen, but there is a certain thing God will not do. And that part of what he will not do is to take away our independence. It's possible for him. He can take away the independence because he gave it to us in the first place, but he will not take it away. So these are some of the things that God can do, but he will never do it because he also limits his supremacy. That is what makes him Krishna. That is why we watch him as the absolute supreme personality of God. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah. Thank you. See, of course, that is why we attend Sangha like this, so we can get our doubts cleared and statements that may have much deeper meaning than what we just read. Because Krishna has stated, and our acharyas and even crazy individual myself, I've also been repeating it. Everybody says it, that the super soul, the Lord in the heart, the Lord is in the heart of all. It's in the heart of all living entities. So, to us as common human beings, when we talk of living entities, we talk of two different things: plants and animals. Now, plants and animals. If plants and animals are living things, where is the heart of the baobab tree? Where is the heart of the redwood tree? Where is the heart of the banyan tree? Do trees have hearts? And even animals. It's not all animals that have hearts. So living entities that do not have hearts, does that mean that God is not in them? That is what our scriptures say. The scriptures say that God is in the heart of all living entities. And there was a question asked, and there was an answer given some time ago, that it says, if God and the living entity both are in the heart, and then there is a heart transplant, does that mean the soul is transferred into the other body? And the the response, the reply to that, or the answer to that, as I understand, is that the super soul and the Atma both live, or they hover in the heart region. But even if that is the case, there are animals, like I'm saying, that have no hearts. Trees have no hearts, where the Supreme Lord and the individual living entity will be living around the heart region. So what do we say when people ask us this question, that if God lives in the heart region and there are other living entities that do not have hearts, does that mean God does not live in those living entities?
Thank you very much for the beautiful question, Prabhu. Someone asked me a question recently. And the question was something similar to what you are just asking now. Most time, there are certain questions that people ask, and it exposes the level of ignorance. And that's what Prabhupada says, that an ignorant man is not known until when he opens his mouth. In the assembly of gentlemen, a foolish man is known only when he opens his mouth. So there is a famous artist, friend of mine. He said something very beautiful. He said the only reason we think we know is because we don't know anything at all. The only reason we think we know is because we don't know anything at all. So the moment that somebody thinks that there are some entities that doesn't have a heart, it's actually an exhibition of ignorance. The fact that we cannot perceive it according to our material scientific experience or examination does not mean that the tree doesn't have a heart. I don't believe that the tree doesn't have a heart, because the word of the Lord cannot be nullified. The Lord says, I live in it, heart of the living entity. So if the Lord says that, then that must be the truth. And then in our scriptures, there is a very beautiful verse which says that in the I think that is Nectar of Devotion, where it is said that no, that is not the verse. It is said that what is that verse? I'm trying to remember that whatever what is that verse? I was reading that verse recently. It was talking about yeah, I remember now. Back to the Samhita, back to the Samhita, you said, Shruti Smritis Purana Adi, Pancharacha Vidivina. Antiki Arabati, Upata Yaiva Kapate, that devotional service of the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic literatures like the Upanishad, Puranas, and another Pancharacha is simply an unnecessary disturbance in the society. So whatever fact, when it relates to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is not supported by the scriptures, is not a fact. Although the scientists may assume and agree on that, then that is their folly. But the fact that they say they know is actually the exhibition of the fact that they don't know. So although they say that the living entities in the tree doesn't have a heart, but I don't believe that is true, because we have not been able to discover it, that does not mean that the tree doesn't have a heart. Because when we talk about the heart, we're talking of a physical object. But the senses are so limited in so many ways that they can only perceive to the extent of which the body can express. So that is one reality, that the fact that some particular entity doesn't have a heart, I don't absolutely accept that, because the Lord has said otherwise. But then also, the other explanation is that, let us assume, without accepting that there is no heart in entities like trees, how do we know? In elementary science, when we started material education, we say non-living entities and living entities. And even at that time, we said the symptoms, the characteristics of living entities are that they can grow, they can they consume, they give a byproduct. And if these entities manifest these symptoms, so it means that although we may not be able to experience certain aspects of their existence, but that does not mean those aspects does not exist. And then the other point you raised, that okay, for those of us that even have the arts, based on our understanding, if the art is replaced, because it's an organ of the body, and there are so many people who have done heart transplant, when the heart is replaced, what happens to the soul at that time? And the very teacher has told us that the Lord and the soul, individual soul, are seated in on the same region of the heart. So what happens? And I like the beautiful answer that's given by one of our senior gurus. He said, living entities, the symptom of a living entity is that we are conscious beings. And as a conscious being, we have the natural reaction to dangers or risk when it comes. And Bhakti Pad, in those days, it says that one of the, I love when I read in Christ and Krishna, when he's explained, he said, he was explaining about our skin. He said the burning sensation that we experience when the fire is burning the skin is not actually a defeat of the skin. It's just a sensory reaction to protect the skin. It's not a destruction of the sin, but it's just a sensory reaction to protect the manifestation or creation of the supreme personality of God. So when the heart is being replaced, the soul or the super soul are not dull matters that cannot move. So when that heart is being replaced, the soul can move because it's conscious. And when the drama is made and the sitting place is made there, just like Chaitanya Charan Prabhu explained in one of his lectures, when we have a laptop and sometimes the hard drive becomes so troublesome, we remove the hard drive and put another hard drive there. Without the hard drive, the laptop will not work. But the moment we put another drive, the system started working, and if we have backed up our information, all the information that we have backed up will appear in the hard drive. So in the same way, when the heart is replaced or removed or whatever, the soul can move. So it moves away. And the heart, when the new sitting place is being provided, the soul and the super soul sit there because that is a sitting place. It is not their existence, it's a sitting place. The Lord said, I am seated in the region of and the earth. It didn't say that is my existence. It didn't say the earth is my existence. He said that is where I sit. So Saturday Prabhu is sitting on a chair now. And the mother local come and I remove that seat. And Saturday had to host this class. And it is time. And he couldn't find that seat. He would look for another seat and put there and sit down and host the class. He may go afterwards and find, where is my original seat? So in the same way, the earth can be replaced. That does not make the existence of the soul sitting on the earth nullify, because the soul is conscious and the soul can move away when there is a disturbance in a particular place where it's seated. And when that seat is provided again, it goes back there and sits. That is my understanding. I hope I touched your question, Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, of course. Thank you so much for touching on it. Dear devotees, does anyone have something to ask or to probe further?
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hi, Hare Krishna, Shri Govinda Prabhu. Yeah.
Dandavapana, Shogras Gurudev, Bhagavati Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
So, Prabhu, thank you very much for your presentation and your answers to Sadhu Prabhu's question. My question is that when one goes outside the body, he uses his subtle body to travel. So when he travels like that, where does he go with the soul? I mean, with with the super soul and the soul and leave the physical body in the bed? Or where is the soul and the super soul when someone travels, when one go outside the body?
Let me understand the question perfectly. When the soul, when they do soul travel, and the soul
when one does soul travel, or take it like when we dream, we see ourselves in a dreaming state, and we perform so many activities.
Absolutely.
Whilst the physical body is laying in bed, where is the soul at that time when we are outside our physical body?
When Krishna is describing the soul in the Bhagavad Gita, when we go to chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gave several hints on the nature or the description of the soul. And when we look from text number 17, I think, Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, that which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. Then it goes further. It says, the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight. Then it goes further. Neither he who thinks the living entity is slayer, nor who thinks who thinks it is slain is in knowledge. For the self is slain not, nor is slain. Then it goes to the popular verse 10. For the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being. That is where I want to take us to. He said, he has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, he is eternal, he ever existing and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. That is the point. So the question is, where does the soul go to when they are doing soul astra? The soul is not a limited entity. It's all pervading, because the Supreme Personality of God is called all pervading, is Vishnu. And the living entity has the nature of the soul or the Supreme. It's also all pervading. But for the purpose of enacting the pastimes to fulfill his desire, the Lord allowed the soul to occupy a particular body to enact the pastimes. And the pastime the soul enacts are dependent on his previous karma. And according to his karma, the kind of sleep experiences we see, the kind of subtle situation we go through the sleep, is the manifestation of the relationship of the soul to the body while in a external dream. Internal dream is let me not put it the other way around. When we are our so-called physical life now is a reflection of the previous activities. Our current association of the mind to the body reflects in our dream states in different ways. There are some of these dreams, dreams are said to be of 3 levels, and there are some dreams that are directly related to the body. There are some dreams that are subtle dreams, which has to do with our subtle self based on the previous karma. And there are other dreams that are actually transcendental dreams, which is actually going beyond the body, which are actually activities of the soul. And those are for souls who are elevating, souls that are elevating. And that is why it is said that the pure devotees never sleep. Even when the so-called sleeping state, they are engaging in activities. So the soul is not bounded by the body. It's not, although is supposedly, and that is why it is also explained that the living entity uses less than 10% of its capacity while in the material body. Because the soul, imagine the soul is sitting down as a yogi, he can levitate himself and go to a very high level. So the soul has so much capacity that we cannot imagine. So when we do the soul travel or elevation of the soul based on these subtle activities, the soul is all pervading. The soul is not limited. It's not conditioned to the body. But when I say not conditioned to the body, it's conditioned in the conditioned state. And that is why they said that in another place in the Bible, it is mentioned that the soul is actually never contaminated. At the particular, it's said that the soul is never contaminated. Although we say this soul is contaminated, in the early days of devotional service, we used to make a joke of each other. Those who are Brahmanas, we said, how do we used to say in those days? How do we used to say that thing? So we give different descriptions to different living. You say this one is for baptists. How do we say it in those days? I've forgotten now. But the soul is not conditioned. The soul is transcendental. The body is conditioned because the body is made of earth, water, fire, air, ether. It's made of the conditional elements, and that's why Krishna says, "Aparayam itasti anyam bina prakriti ashtada jiva bhuta mahabaho yahidam daryate." Apart from this conditioned material body that we see, there is one other entity, there is living entity which is superior. It's a superior energy, and it's not limited in the condition of limitation that we perceive in a material body. So when the soul travels, when we do soul travels and all of that, the soul can abit the gross body and engage in activities. It can abit the subtle body and engage in activities. Whichever the one is necessary at any particular time, the soul can use that particular body for activity. So when we are in the dreaming state, the soul is operating on the subtle body. The same thing when we are doing soul travel. The soul is seated on the three subtle body, mind, intelligence, and the ego, and is engaging in those activities. So when they say the soul is seated on the earth, it's not like it is limited here. And then when something happens, and that is why also we say that when the soul, when the body dies, the soul leaves the body immediately, and it is carried by the three subtle body, and it exists in those three subtle body, and that subtle body carries him into another body. And when the soul becomes liberated, those subtle body, the mind, intelligence, and ego is transformed. So the soul is not limited. That is the answer of my answer, that the soul is not limited to the body. So therefore, its activities are not limited. So when the soul travels, or the yogi levitates, or the yogi performs some extraordinary activities, is engaging that on the subtle body, because it has developed its consciousness to the extent that it can be the subtle body, elevate itself, and do so many activities. That's much I understand. But if there are other additions, because I know you know this, you just want to educate us.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Yes. So the soul is all pervading. So means that the soul is everywhere, and it can do one thing and other thing at the same time, because it's all powerful. So the soul is like electricity. It can be situated at one place, but its energy can be spread in many places unlimitedly.
Yes, it can address itself.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Srimavara Acharya Prabhu, please see me on mute.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisance.
Jai.
All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. So just allow me to make some few comments about Sayadaw Prabhu's question, that the plants do not have hearts. So when you plant a tree and there is an obstacle in front of that tree, and the tree goes around it, what has happened? There is an obstacle. When you plant a tree, it meets an obstacle and it turns. What makes it to turn? It is heartless. And then you have sensitive plants that when you touch them, they fold their hands. They fold up. And there are also plants that actually eat insects. When insects enter, they fold up. So how do they think like that? How do they recognize if they are heartless. So what you call heart, of course, one thing I'd wanted to say is that you need to have a tree body. You need to have a tree body to know where the heart is. But since you don't have a tree body, so you shouldn't talk about tree has no body. Yeah. Or if you really want to know, then you have to go get a tree body first. So there are many things that actually show us that these other entities also have the kind of feelings we have. We may not be able to place it where it is in their body because the body is different, that's all. But they also have our feelings, right? So that is my small comment about whether the trees have heart or not. Okay, and I think the last question, Prabhu, what is his name?
Praveen.
Speaker, Salika Prabhu, you answered the question, but you turn around again. Well, because Prabhu Govinda is asking to know where is the soul when the soul moves out. But you are describing the qualities of the soul, which is all right. But that is the quality of the super soul also. The super soul can be at many places at the same time. Simple. The super soul is everywhere. So it's not limited to where the one soul is. It's not in many places at the same time. But Prabhu, you are actually answering the question, but it's like you are focusing more on the soul rather than the super soul, which was the question. Okay, that's my humble question.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Acharya Prabhu. Madhava Prabhu, do you still have your question or your question is being answered?
Yes, I still have my question.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I want to believe that if somebody is asleep or dreaming, it's the subtle body that left the person or the body, the mind, intelligence, and the ego. And then there are some factors that affect our dreams. The first one is whatever activity we perform during the day or before us, it can reflect in our dreams. Then some can also reflect dreams. The third one, I can't just remember now. So I want to believe that the soul will remain with the body. Because once the soul leaves the body is dead. And if somebody is dreaming, something happens to the body, you see that the person can get up again, the dream will stop. So I want to believe that the soul still remains with the body. Then the super soul can help the subtle body, but I want to believe that the soul will remain within the body. Hare Krishna. That's my own.
Thank you very much, Madhvan Prabhu, for your understanding. The soul, because it's not limited in that context, it is of the nature of the super soul, which is all pervading. So it can simultaneously be here and there. That is what we say. That's why I was trying to emphasize the nature of the soul. So when the soul is traveling or is dreaming, and it goes there, the soul is simultaneously here and there. And that is the philosophy of Srila Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, simultaneously one and different, because the soul has that capacity at that level to be simultaneously here and there. And because it's all pervading nature. So even though it's engaging in those other activities, it's also understanding what is going on here. And then for those who have experience of influence of the extraterrestrial souls walking through the physical body, it is something like when you are, okay, let me use what is most commonly understood. When they say that the body is occupied by another soul, or is another spirit. When we use the word spirit, when the soul is occupied, as the particular soul is there, but the soul, another spirit comes into that place. The person or somebody is hypnotized. Let me use that word, hypnotism. So the person is subconscious. He knows that this is going on, but at the same time, he knows that something is wrong. He is conscious of his existence and is conscious of the other side. So it's in between the both, but then he can simultaneously experience both at the same time. And that is the nature of the soul. And of course, the dream of different level. There are some dreams that when they said somebody is in coma, it's another thing entirely. It's another different explanation entirely. It's a level of dream or sleeping state that is on a different level of the person is subconscious. He can hear here, he can hear there. And that is why those who really have near-death experience, they will tell you, they wouldn't know whether it is a near-death experience because everything is like normal. When I had an experience in 2014, when I came out of that, when I was being told that you were being certified dead for over 36 minutes, I couldn't understand what was that death experience because I was active on that plane. And I wouldn't understand that I was dead here. So my body was already certified dead. So people who have that experience of things, in real sense of it, this death, this subject matter of death, it's a different topic entirely anyway. But the fact is that the point we're trying to buttress here is that the soul is not limited in that context. The soul it has the nature of the Supreme Soul.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you very much for your explanation. Yeah, the near-death experience that you actually experienced, that time your soul left your body. It's not within your body. Those who have near-death experience, they will see people operating on their body. They will see it. But for one reason, the soul went back to the body. Then the situation where they say, where is the heart of a tree? I want to believe it's within the roots. Because if you cut a tree now, it can still spring up again. So that's our own basic.
I know that according to science, my heart is in the region of my chest. But for the trees, I cannot tell. It's in the roots. But the fact is that the tree has a heart. We may not be able to perceive the heart of the tree.
Well, Hare Krishna. Thank you, all devotees.
Maybe can we then say that
Okay.
the heart and the intestines and the liver and everything of the tree is being placed in its subtle body? That, or can we say that the tree has a subtle body? Because I don't know, and I don't think any machine has been able to detect the intestines and the liver and everything of these bodies, like trees and other stuff. Can we say those things are placed in the subtle form of those bodies?
That is why we say that. That's why I made that quote of a wise saying by my good friend, August Ikwege, that the only reason we think we know is because we don't know anything at all. The reality is that we know as much as we are elevated spiritually. Prabhupada will always say something like, if we see what is what, we will faint. Because there are certain things that we cannot even imagine them. So the fact is that according to the kind of the body that we have, we can actually see certain things. You see that sometimes even animals like dog, when someone dies and is moving, this dog is seeing And then we are not seeing, but we have the two eyes. We have the so-called two eyes. And I always bulldoze the academy as when I go to their level of, they claim to be knowing so much, but they don't actually, this thing that we call eyes is just like the toy. The real eye is not this toy. It's the soul that is seeing. But this thing that we call is just a external sensory object to give it a name. And I was telling somewhere, I was speaking and I was saying that, why is it that God, I was talking to a Christian brother, a Christian forum, sorry. And I said to them, when they were asking, I said, can anyone tell me, why did God tell Adam to give names to everything? Why did God not give them names? I said, why did God not give all the trees, plants, and everything that we are naming? We call this thing ear. So why did God not say it is ear? Why is it that he's telling Adam to give it name? God will have said, this is ear, this is the nose, this is the eyes. Why is God not saying it? Because whatever we are saying is based on our perception. The whole world is existing based on what we think we know. Our knowledge is what is ruling the world. So the experience we are having is based on the level of knowledge that we have acquired. And based on the level of knowledge acquisition, we name things, we express things, we relate to things based on that. So in a real sense, maybe this, if the demigods want to talk, they will say this is not the here. And we can take a clue from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam says that the devotees drink the nectar of the ambrosia of the Bhagavatam through the ears. But we know that materially nobody drinks with the ear. We drink with the mouth. So maybe the demigod will call this thing that we call the ear something else. In this verse, there is one word I was laughing when I was reading the translation, nana. And then when I ask you, Prabhu, in Ghana, nana in Ghana language, it's a different thing entirely. So the names that we give to things are based on our knowledge of those things. Our perception, our level of realization is what determines how we name things. Just like we say, illicit sex is bad. For somebody, it is the greatest sense enjoyment. So it is not sin. It is something natural for him.
Well, Hare Krishna. Shri Salika Prabhu, you're breaking out a little bit. But we have Shimavara Prabhu's hand up. There are quite a number of Sanskrit names in the Ghanaian language. Nana is there. Ghana itself as a country is also Sanskrit. The currency.
Papa.
Yeah, Papa. The currency.
Tata.
Yeah. Shama.
Shama. So
yeah.
many.
So many.
So many of them.
Shrimavara Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Am I clear?
Yes.
So, he's talking about okay, two things. I'm getting them confused together. One is still about the heart.
Yeah.
Still about the heart, whether the plant has the heart. There is an experiment. You plant two plants, plant them the same day, and expose them to the same sunlight, give them the same water. But one, you go and be singing to that one every day. You sing to it. The other one, you don't sing to it. And as time goes on, you watch, how they develop. This has improved scientifically, and you can also try. Plants that get exposed to good melody, sweet melody, grow very nicely, very healthily, than the one that is kept in a corner where there's no sound or no sound, no sweet melody. So, with what is the plant reacting to the music? It's definitely with our hearts that we react to things emotionally. So, and then Prabhu talked about animism. And I'm particularly interested in the animism because this is African tradition. And the closer you get to these people, you know that they can tell you the heart and the leg and the ears of a tree. They can tell you the different part of a tree that you do not know. Because they use this different part in healing. So if there is the same tree can be used for different ailments, but they will tell you the part that you need to heal a particular ailment. And they will explain to you that is his ears, or that is his leg, or that is his whatever. So when you really get closer to those who are, worship the heart, and things in nature, then you'll be surprised, how much they know about things that we do not know. So I hope you get that last point. They can tell you use this part of the tree because that is the part that relates to the heart, to the ear, or to the leg, or etc. Okay, so now the other one, I think I had that question about why did Krishna make it difficult for us not to understand him as God? But I think what Krishna says in the Gita is to know him as he is that is difficult. To know him as he is fully, that is what is difficult. But everyone gets an understanding of God at different levels. Everyone gets an understanding of God. And he says in the Gita chapter 7 that our devotion to these different demigods is actually to him. But that is our level. That is what we can understand. So there's no question of people do not understand God. Even the atheists understand God in some way. I know one famous atheist in Nigeria, Tai Solan, and he said that actually he believed that the snake is God. Well, how it comes to that? He said because every entity fears snake. Every entity fears snake, so snake must be God because it's all inspired. It's an atheist, but that is his belief. So to say that God does not allow us to understand him, that is not true. Our being able to understand him in full or as he is, that is what is difficult. That is what is difficult. But everyone perceives God, understands God according to his level. And that's why there are different faiths. So, and Krishna says, all of them do what? Follow my path in all respect. Isn't it? So I don't think that it is because, excuse me, I don't want to talk too long, but you know very well what I want to say. The example of arithmetic, geometry, and calculus. So it's the same calculation. But some people can understand calculus, and some people they can only understand the level of arithmetic. But it's the same calculation. So that according to their different level, they understand certain aspect of calculation. So we cannot say that God makes it. Why does He make it difficult to understand? You're understanding Him to your level. If you raise your level, then you can understand again more. So it doesn't. Of course, He says in the Gita, "Naham Prakasha Sarvasya," He does not reveal Himself to the fool, because the fool does not want to know better. That's all. But those who make effort to want to know Him, He reveals Himself to them. That's it. He does not hide Himself. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the contributions. Beautiful.
Hare Krishna.
And we have Arichakra Prabhu.
Yeah.
Arichakra Prabhu, Dhanavat Pranam.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. About the issue of the heart. Listen, is so many things, because one thing, the scripture is saying the soul resides in the heart region. Good. But when somebody leaves the body, it's because the soul has left. That is why the person is dead, right? But they said if you have not become qualified to go to the spiritual world, the subtle body goes with the soul together, right?
Yeah.
So if that is the situation, so where is the heart? Because when you leave your body, the heart is there. The heart is left behind with the corpse, with the dead body. So if the soul is moving with the subtle body, then where is the heart? And secondly, scientifically or biologically, when a semen fertilizes an egg and it starts producing, trying to form the body, according to scripture, the soul is already there. That is why the formation starts. The whole process of forming the body begins because of the presence of the soul. But according to biology, that fetus doesn't have a heart in the beginning. It's after a certain point in time that the heart is formed. So as at the time that the heart has not been formed, does that mean the soul doesn't have where to reside?
Prabhuji,
So
let me try to answer this question in a very maybe it might sound somewhat sarcastic, but you're sitting now, I believe, in a car. You're moving in a vehicle, right? When you drop from the car and you get back home, I'm a yogi. You can see I could see that you're in the car. So you are sitting on a seat comfortably. When you get down from the car, you don't carry the car seat into your room. You still sit on a chair. So the fact that you have moved does not mean that, and you are sitting in the house, you are sitting in the car, does not mean that you are not sitting on a chair. And when we talk about this, the soul sitting on the earth, when the soul is in the foetus, or he has left the body, is in the subtle body, we may not be able to understand the level of the earth that is sitting on, but he's sitting on the heart, because that is what the Lord says. And the word of the Lord can never be nullified. So the kind of seat is sitting, the earth is a sitting place for the Lord.
Yeah.
And the soul. No. And that the kind of the seat, or the earth, let's use the word earth, may be different, but there is always the earth. So just like we have the subtle body, we have the gross body, there are other bodies, and we only know the bodies that we know, but that does not limit the fact that there are other bodies. So when, in the same way, when the Supreme Lord said, I'm seated in the region of the earth that we know is what we relate to, but there may be other earths, and there will be other earth, because if the Lord said it, it exists. So the earth is what we are seeing.
Salika, I perfectly understand. That is what I was trying to drag at. That this heart that is being mentioned, maybe it's not this, what do we call it? Our physical heart that we see with the body. Maybe it's a more detailed form of a heart. Other than that, when the heart has not been formed in the fetus, but the soul will still be present, it means there's something, there's some sort of a heart there. Either in the subtle form or somewhere that the soul is already seated. So that is the same thing I'm trying to drag at, that maybe we are trying to limit the heart to something. It's like another aspect of it. When we say the mind, practically speaking, a lot of us think that the mind is in the head, right? A lot of people think that when we say the mind is in the head. But if you scrutinize the scripture properly, you realize that the mind is not in the head. The mind is also in the heart region. And that is why when someone is really troubled mentally, usually you see there's some sort of effect in the heart. So maybe we are limiting ourselves too much to the physical elements of the bodies. That when we talk about the brain, the mind, the heart, and we are limiting ourselves too much. And that's why we are getting a little bit, what do I say? We are getting a little bit, whether we call it confused or whatever it is. Maybe that heart we are talking about is not just this physical heart we are seeing. It might entail something very deeper. Well, this is just my opinion.
Thank you very much. We are on the same page, Prabhuji. That's exactly what we're saying, that the art that we refer to when we say the art, the art is based on, that was why the beginning of my answer to that question, that was why I said that quote, that when we say, when we say that we know, actually is the manifestation of the fact that we really do not know. Because the reality is that our knowledge is based on our perception, our depth of knowledge. But the only reason that we are saying we know where the art is based on what we know. But it is actually maybe probably based on the fact that we don't know anything at all, like Bongo quickly said. So thank you very much for the further explanation on it. Thank you.
Well, Hare Krishna, thank you all to your devotees. I believe it's been more than 2 hours, and we're going to humbly bring this to a close. But again, my humble suggestion is that we're trying to discuss and share the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is very, very esoteric, very, very deep, and there is no shame in not knowing or understanding certain things from the scriptures, particularly from the Srimad Bhagavatam. But I believe that most of our contributions have been, I think, I believe, which does not go well with Srimad Bhagavatam Katha. So my humble suggestion is that it's become a homework for all of us to do, to try to go deeper into the scriptures, to try to answer these questions in a scriptural viewpoint. But so far, it's okay because we are also allowed to imagine. From such imaginations, then we have the eagerness or the appetite to want to know exactly why this thing happened or why that is the case. So we thank you all, and especially SALIKA Prabhu. Most of you may not know, but SALIKA Prabhu was not the original scheduled speaker. There was an error, and our speaker be here. So we got to know about that very late last night. So if you paid attention, we also shared the poster pretty late. So Shri SALIKA Prabhu, we thank you so much for this amazing service of instant and abrupt step in to speak Srimad Bhagavatam. With that being said, we're going to humbly suggest to all the devotees, and a request to you, actually, we requested that you all unmute and we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, His Grace SALIKA Prabhu. Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Hare Rama,
Rama
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Hare.
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 Vanchakripatarubhascha,
Vanchakapatavascha
Itala
Evacha
Patitanam Pavashnabhyo,
Maha.
Krishna Namo Namaha. This confounder Acharya is Divine Krishna Prabhupada ki.
Jai,
Tantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Jai,
Oh, Kuminande.
Hare Hare Bo,
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.